Greetings. Welcome to Speak Nerd and Enter.
Should actually be episode. This should be actually episode 2. All the stuff we did last time, apparently, I have to go over again now.
yeah, all of it. So
So
take it away, Sean.
So listen, you remember last time we were talking about, or it came up anyway, a couple of things. First, you mentioned Aliens, and you mentioned Terminator 2. And I was saying how neither of them is actually the masterpiece you think they are.
Okay. Everyone's wrong.
What's that?
Everyone's wrong.
Yes.
Yeah, everyone's wrong except Sean, apparently.
Yeah.
That's how it goes.
All right, you know what? I'll bite. Please tell me how I've been wrong about two of my favorite movies for my entire life. I would love to hear this. I'm going to keep an open mind.
Yeah. Now, Alien itself was a great movie. Alien was amazing. Alien itself, the first one was amazing. It was great. You had characters who were believable and relatable, and the interactions with them, between them, actually was astonishingly good. It was well written, well done.
And
the dynamic, you could believe that.
It was good. It had a cat, and it had Sigourney Weaver in underpants, which is always a plus. And, a really cool, scary alien.
The alien was great. That was groundbreaking. All of that was groundbreaking. What you had happen when you go to Aliens, however, all of that suddenly changes. Now it's not the intriguing characters that you had out of the first one. It's been Cameronized, is what happened to it. And James Cameron has a formula, if you will. If you look at Avatar, that formula is there. If you look at Terminator 2 and Terminator 1, that formula is there as well. He has a thing with stereotypes in his movies. And the characters who are in those movies have to fill those stereotypes. So you have, and this is what put me off to it, when, what was his name? The comedian dude. The guy who played the corporate. Yes, thank you. Paul Reiser. When he shows up and says, hey, I'm a good guy, I know I work for the company, but hey, I'm really a good guy. I'm an okay guy, that kind of thing. He's not. Then you have all of the Marines in there who are supposed to be the best of the best, right? Which one of those guys in there looked like they were professional at all?
At all.
Yeah. And
Spunkmeyer looked like he had his shit together too.
Spunkmeyer. By the way, I was thinking about that, Drew. Do you remember when we went and saw Face Off?
Yes, Pincus.
And I remember he was talking about all the names of the people that they had lost, and he's going through all the names of Wachowski and Pincus and all of that.
No.
And
you leaned over to me.
No, I did. Hang on, because
Pincus.
No. That's not what I said.
You did.
I leaned over to you, and he said Pincus, and I leaned over to you, and I said Nippleman. And Drew broke out in the biggest laugh in that movie theater at that point. Everybody else was real quiet because, of course, he's giving this big tirade about how they had just lost all these people and everything. And I just leaned over and said Nippleman.
But let's just face facts. I was already on the fence of this movie is shit, and I was already making fun of it in my mind. It was just so terrible. And then when he said that, it just was like icing on the cake, which made it say, "Yeah, this movie is funnier than it is like a serious."
It is. It was. Yeah.
I think that's when the term "woo-diculous" when we was woo-diculous from that point.
Yes.
Oh, that's ridiculous. That's woo-diculous.
And that's the thing.
And there are, doves flying, and there's an explosion, because that was always like his like big thing. Gotta have birds flying, and I didn't see the appeal. I know that we had mutual friends that were sort of like, "Oh my god, it's so good."
Oh,
it's John Woo.
That
guy's the killer.
And this is what I'm talking about, is that had the John Woo treatment, the Woo-diculous treatment. Well, this was Alien being given the Cameronized treatment, where suddenly you had it full of stereotypes.
So hold on. Do I need to let you finish before I offer my rebuttal, which I'm welcome to do, or are we going to take these point by point?
No. You'll listen to this and then you'll agree.
Well, all right then.
Yeah, this is going to be great.
No, you can do it however you like. I don't care.
Right. See, now I don't disagree with you about like the tropes and the character archetypes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but again, that's a function of storytelling that
Mm-hmm.
transcends all movies and all stories and whatnot. And I would argue that in Aliens, that was the first time Cameron had ever done that. And I would also argue that he had done it far better in Aliens than in any movie. For instance, Avatar, it has all the same characters as like, you know, the Aliens movie. You got the jackass corporate guy. Paul Reiser was way better than that other dude. And you've got, you know, Vasquez was way better than Michelle Rodriguez as the, you know, the military badass and whatnot. So like I say, those archetypes, yes, they've been done and they appear, but here we are from the same director, arguably at the top of his game during Aliens, delivering something that, you know, a new twist, a new take that, yes, he went back to that well in later movies and did not succeed as well. But I don't think that takes away from Aliens in and of itself.
And
now,
and
where
I'll add to that also, with the original Alien, I mean, as cool as the alien looked, I mean, there were times when you just saw like it was a dude in a suit.
The dude in a suit.
The worst one was when he's going after one of the dudes in the end in like the back of the hangar, and you see he's clearly on wheels, and he's like coming towards. Now I love Ridley Scott. I mean, he's amazing, but that one scene where the alien's like moving, it looks like someone's pulling the thing on wheels, and it's like, oh my god, that's kind of
right. But again, I'm not going to be too critical because they're making a movie in 1970. It would have come out in 79, so they made it in like 78 or whatever.
But my point,
it was state of the art for what it was. But,
right.
But Cameron took that to another level.
Amazing.
Right. Well, but this is not my point. If we're going off of just the special effects and how good the special effects were, then there's a lot of movies that you'd have to say, oh, well, then that's in another echelon because the special effects were great. Cameron didn't make the special effects.
That's right. Like all the later Star Wars movies had much better special effects. Therefore, they must be superior movies.
There you go. But see, my point is that to what you just said, Mark, the thing that made Alien so good for me was the storytelling, the atmosphere, all of those that went along with it. That's, you know, why the special effects themselves didn't detract from it, because the mood was there that had already made you willing to suspend disbelief. So you're willing to look past that.
The Alien is a horror movie.
Yeah.
And Aliens is an action.
Right.
I mean, there's a difference. I mean, it's like there's
action movies don't need to be full of the Cameronized characters. The best action movies out there have characters that are just as intriguing as they were in Alien. And the thing that upset me is that he took a movie like Alien and changed it entirely. So it's like looking at Rocky, the original Rocky, which was written well, had, you know, a great story to it and all of that. And then you look at Rocky 3. And suddenly it's become a parody of itself. And you're like, well, wait a minute. We didn't start with this. The idea was here's a realistic person with real life going on and all these things. And now we've turned him into some sort of pseudo superhero thing with a totally different. This isn't what it started out as. It became a parody of itself. And Aliens became a parody of itself. If he had kept and done an homage, let's say, to Ridley Scott's original movie, great. Like Blade Runner 2049. Good movie. It didn't turn itself into a parody of what it was. It was an extension of.
Yeah, Sean, I gotta say, man, I'm not agreeing with you. I don't believe Aliens is a parody of Alien. Alien was a horror movie in space where you're trapped on a ship with this deadly alien. Right, and it was groundbreaking for the time, and cool, and it stands its own separate thing.
And they're not military men; they're just regular.
Right. And this one was like, oh well, what if there was a bunch of them, and now you're trapped on a planet with a bunch of them, but this time you have some Marines and you have some other stuff. So it's still they've turned that premise up, and they've ratcheted up the action and the kind of the stakes, if you will, because oh my gosh, now there's hundreds of them, and if they get out, look what it did to this colony.
Now, I
Right.
agree
And
with
so
you. The
like I'm not buying
premise,
that one is a parody of the other. One is a horror movie set in space by a different director. They took the same villain, the same monsters, and we're like, oh well, now what if there was a bunch of them, and we get to see an alien queen, and now we
Yeah.
understand more about where they all come from,
yeah.
and hilarity ensues, as they say.
They
Again, I
turned
think
it
it was
into the
done really,
fun.
really well. Characters like Vasquez and Apone and even these like bit characters that did not have a lot of screen time, like you still identified with them. You got them. I thought it was great character development
Who
for
identified with those characters? Those
everybody
characters,
identified with those
those
characters.
characters were ridiculous. I agree with you. The premise is good. The premise would be amazing. I loved the idea of, hey, let's go to this planet where the aliens have, we all knew the aliens had taken over and there was this big nest and what happened, right? Exploring that and doing that would have been great with the same attention that had been given in the first movie. This one didn't have that. This one wasn't, hey, let's send military guys up there, because military guys, anyone who had any sort of forethought would not have done what they did. Why are you going to show up to, as an example, just as an example, why are you going to show up to a place that is a nuclear facility with weapons, tools that you know, for whatever reason, are going to cause this thing to go critical when you are going to have to possibly go to war? Why would you do that? Why wouldn't you send your people there with tools that they need? And why would each and every one of the people that you're sending there be as unprofessional as they are? I don't
Well,
know
they didn't know
anybody
what
in
they
the
were going.
military who, when they're sent on a mission, would sit there and, crack wise like they were cracking wise. That's not how it's done.
They were just surmising what they were entering into. They didn't know all the details about these things.
They knew it
Right.
was a
They had to go
nuclear
rescue
facility because they
those
knew the
colonists
money
needed
attached
rescuing.
to it.
And you got to remember, they haven't encountered anything like that before that caused them any kind of threat. So I think they just thought it was going to be, little. They even called it a bug hunt, like little tiny creatures
Like they'd
that
done
live
it before.
on other planets that they've kind of gotten rid of, like roaches or whatever, if you will.
They
Uh,
knew. I disagree with you. They knew what they had because they had the studies. The corporation, because they're evil, hadn't told them anything about it, but they had them in the tubes. It wasn't like they were in the tubes and they were keeping quiet and in the dark from everybody else. They were sent there with the idea that they were going to bring back some of this stuff. Remember, that was part of the subplot, was that the corporation wanted this stuff to be able to study it and test it and all of that. So it wasn't like it was blind to them, that they didn't know what they were doing.
yeah, but the people going in didn't know. I mean, they didn't know. I mean,
Even,
maybe the
look, the
company
people they
knew.
were supposed to be sending are not like the people they portrayed in that movie. They're not. I've trained with people like that. I've trained people like, they don't do that. They don't go, I just need to know one thing, where they are, and all that
Yeah,
crap.
you're right. People in the Marines don't have any type of bravado about how badass of fighters they are, and that they only need to know where the enemy is to go, whoop
They
some
don't
ass.
say that. No,
Uh,
no, they don't.
well,
They
they
want to
might
know, they
if
want
you
to
put a
know,
camera in their face and was like, "We're going to pay you a bunch of money to portray a badass," right?
yeah.
None of these people were in the military. It was a movie, so on the one hand, if you're looking for stark realism and most awesome tactics from your late '80s action movie, I think you're not going to watch very many late '80s action movies.
I think I'd end up watching a 70s era movie that had more realism in it about the characters that it had in that movie than the second one did. I'm looking for something that has, and by the way, you have movies like Deer Hunter and things of that ilk that have that level of gravitas. That would have been amazing. Then you have a movie that would have had, because the plot would have been great. That's what frustrated me so much about it, was that it was Cameron not doing what he could have done with it, but instead was making a popcorn kind of movie.
Okay, so
And
sell me on the ideal version of Aliens, like because I enjoyed Aliens. It's one of my top 10. It's one of my all time favorite
I
movies.
know, and it makes me
Despite
sad.
what you're saying now, it's to me it's right up there with Love Actually.
I would put it up there with Love Actually.
That's
yes.
right. That's right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but like in all seriousness, like it is a 1980s action popcorn movie, right?
Yeah.
But that's still a thing that I like very much about it. So, balls in your court. Like if we could wipe the slate clean
Yeah.
and you could whisper into James Cameron's ear, here's what
Yeah.
should go into the script. Here's what this movie should be. Lay it
Yeah.
on me.
More seriousness from his characters, more thoughtfulness in their tactics. The tactics blew me away. I was wondering, what are you doing? What is this? There's no way that you do that. If the aliens are going to swarm them, great, that's fine. That's a valid tactic. But if you're going to check a colony on a foreign planet where you know that there have been issues with some possible alien life, you can't tell me that as human beings on Earth that you would send one squad of Marines, ill-equipped and ill-armored, one vehicle, one dropship, to go and check this out.
They had plenty of armament, but Ripley broke the transaxle, so she broke their APC.
He was only
and then Spunkmeyer let one of them in and crashed their Apache helicopter ship. So, like I said, they suffered some combat losses, but they showed up loaded for bear. You remember when that thing was like flying and like the missiles popped out, and you were like, "Oh, this is gonna be awesome!" And then they never shot them. Like I love that part of the movie. They're like, you know what? Let's all get in the forklift and take on the aliens with that.
Now, I will tell you the things I liked about it a great deal, which you already mentioned, which was the raising of the production, the actual, spectacle of the movie. I thought that was wonderful. That was great. But that's what frustrated me so much, was that he was so close to getting what he should have had and didn't. And the knock-on effect of that, if you will, is Avatar. Because Avatar production value was through the roof. It was amazing. It was like looking at candy, right?
It was such a beautiful failure.
Now, if you want to talk about a movie that is just the same as the other, I mean, I didn't like Avatar.
I didn't either.
Nobody liked Avatar.
Was boring, and it was exactly like they were trying to emulate aliens. Now, if you want to talk about a movie imitating another movie, that's it. He repeated himself.
That's the Cameron method.
That's right.
What
Tall Blue Fern Gully.
He
has to have those stereotypes.
And a lot of people loved the aliens, and they were all learning this stupid language and making themselves blue.
Yeah. Now I will say this about James Cameron, right? As a technical filmmaker, he has consistently pushed the bleeding edge of what can be done on film. You know what I mean? So like what he's done with Avatar and creating some of the special effects and the things that they can do with computer graphics and whatnot. Consistently at the forefront. He's one of those directors. And unfortunately, having a really, really cool tool doesn't make you a really, really good storyteller. You know what I'm saying? So It was a beautiful technical movie, but the script was amateurish. It was very third grade, in my opinion. It was like, look, all the scientists are amazing people and they want to, commune with nature. All of the military people are like evil warmongers. And all of the blue people are at one with nature, and they're amazing, and all of the corporate people are greedy and evil.
Do you think
there was no nuance in any of that?
Do you think he played 40K at all? Because he threw a lot of dreadnoughts in there.
No, because in 40K the dreadnoughts have a front armor thing.
No.
We should
in
tell
Avatar.
Wachowskis about that as well.
In Avatar, I mean, not in Aliens. In Avatar.
Oh, no, I'm saying is that you've got this big armored thing and it's like basically just a windshield on the front. I mean, it's still better than the Wachowskis with their machine gun guys with literally a roll cage. Like that didn't make any sense to me at all.
See, that was the that. But I will say this about them, because I want to say something very positive about each of those filmmakers that we're talking about here, and I'll throw Lucas in there too. Is that the upside and the downside to it is they have created IPs that are so rich and so they're so diverse for storytelling that they're actually able to a certain extent withstand their own creators, where they'll make something that's not great, but you still want to go see it because you want the initial IP to work. You want that story to be there. It's just so tough to find someone who actually is able to do it again and again. It's like they hit that once, they get that lightning once, and then they can't do it again. I don't understand that
They're
part.
unoriginal. Nowadays, it's just they can't think of original ideas. They have to they grab one of something that was successful and then they bludgeon it to death and they drain as much life out of it as they can to make a bucket of cash and take it while they can. And I mean, that's the sad thing. I mean, you see it all the time. There isn't any idea out there that Hollywood hasn't taken and just bludgeoned to death to like squeeze another dime out of it.
It's not always the director, because the director is sometimes different than the writer. You know what I'm saying? So the writers, unfortunately, bear a huge amount of responsibility for bad movies. So sometimes I'll watch a movie and I was like, oh my gosh, how did this get made? That is so amateurish. But it's the writing, because the writing is free, so to speak. Like there's no CGI effects. There's none of that. The writing is like, I want to tell a good, tight, coherent story. And then they hand it to the director. Now, in a lot of cases, the writer and director is the same person, which can be an amazing thing if the writer has this amazing vision and he's the only one that can direct it. So I'll throw shade where it needs to be thrown, but sometimes, hey, I'm going to direct this movie and you threw the script at me and this is what I have to shoot. The directors don't always run off and like, oh, I'm going to change all the things. That's not exactly how that works either. So depending on what particular movie, we're going to be like, who wrote it versus who directed it, and is it the same person? So we can't always throw one under the bus, because it might not be 100% their
I agree with that. I agree 100%.
And that goes to the actors too. Like talking about some of these Star Wars prequels with their very wooden dialogue. That's not Natalie Portman's fault now, is it? So somebody wrote those words for her to speak.
I felt so bad for her.
It also is the director a little bit too, because you can take the same lines, have a different director, and they will find a different angle that works. The director's job is to find a way to make some of that wooden dialogue work in the environment that they have. I mean, he's to give as much advice as he can to the actors and know that their skill level, they're there for a reason, that their skill level will be able to portray that character and say that line. Granted, there are some terrible, terrible dialogue, in these types of movies.
Yeah.
But I mean, if both are failing you, if you've
and like I say,
a bad director or a director that's not his strong point, directing actors, then you're in trouble.
Yeah. But like I say, good storytelling, the dialogue isn't always, A, B, C leads you right to the point. And I'll give you an example. I just watched the Serenity movie, at the very end where they're fixing the ship up and Zoe comes up and he's like, oh, we're ready to take off. And Zoe's like, yep, she's tore up plenty, but she'll fly. They're not just talking about the ship, and everybody knows they're talking about her as well, because her husband just died and the crews went through this very traumatic thing. And so the double meaning in this dialogue makes a lot of sense, as opposed to this very single layer dialogue, which is, we're talking about one thing and everybody's watching you talk about one thing. Right. And so that's one of those things, like with how you're telling movies, is like, are two people just sitting there face to face talking? That's probably the most boring way you can spit dialogue out or exposition or get information to the audience. Right. There's other ways to go about doing that again, a creative filmmaker can do it. I was watching the last episode of The Mandalorian, and they're all, huddled up right before the big climactic battle. And what's her name? I know, but what's her name's like, as everybody knows, here's we have, and she's literally explaining the whole plan to the people that already know the plan. Right. And then they'll flash to, we've got one guy, we've got this one Wookiee out on the edge of town, just standing there by himself. So that area is secure. You know what I'm saying? And I'm just like, A, your plan is really terrible. But B, why are you explaining this to us as like, this was lazy script writing? And that was all I could think as she's like whipping out her PowerPoint slide. And she's like, here, we're over here. And we've got these people over here. And then this is how it's going to go. If everything goes according to plan, and we're all like, well, of course it's not going to go according to plan. I mean, it was so ham-fisted and poorly done.
I wanted Boba Fett to do so well. I really did. I've never been a fan of his, but that wasn't because of anything wrong with Boba Fett himself, but just how he was used, how he's portrayed in the movies and such. I really wanted him to have his day in this. I really did.
Well, you're not
And
going to get
man,
it with Robert Rodriguez because he just, I'm sorry. If I could keep that guy away from Star Wars physically, I would. I mean, he is not good. He doesn't get it. His movies aren't that good. His movies as a director are pretty crappy. I mean, the only reason why anybody thinks of the mariachi movie is because Antonio Banderas is so awesome. When you look at him on screen, he
Don't
like
forget Salma Hayek.
that's the only
yeah,
reason
that's
why
true. Yeah.
this guy has
See,
any
now,
kind
now
of.
I disagree with you. I need to come clean. I am an unapologetic Robert Rodriguez fan.
Oh my
I
God.
have his book on my shelf, Rebel Without a Crew, right? He's an inspiration for how he came up and got into Hollywood. Like I say, El Mariachi, he was done on like a $5,000 budget, with him and some friends down in Mexico. It was what it was. Like Desperado was probably my first, Hollywood interaction with him. But he did Sin City. I liked Sin City. It was great. He respected the source material. He did really good things. Once Upon a Time in Mexico was a great movie.
You can't tell a story to save
Again, I went to Blockbuster and rented one of the Spy Kids movies just so that I could watch the bonus features on how he went about making some things. So, like,
Why
I'm a
not emulate
fan of. Let me finish. I am a fan of Robert Rodriguez, and I agree with you 100% that he doesn't understand Star Wars, and that what he was trying to do, like those kids on the Power Rangers bikes, that's not Star Wars. You know what I mean? Like, Star Wars is this lived in,
By the way,
even
rusty
beyond the
universe,
Star Wars stuff.
and then you show up with these brand. Now I get it. You're like, oh well, people go out and get these hogs, these motorcycles, and they chrome them up, and they're riding around town showing them off. I get that that's where he was trying to. It was like this low rider truck thing, or the car mod guys. It was that kind of thought process in Star Wars. Like, I get it. I don't think they pulled it off well.
They were like, he was doing.
They were Vespas.
He was doing Vespas for
Every other
By
speeder
the way,
in all of Star Wars goes 115 miles an hour in first gear, right? And these guys are going 28.
Yeah.
Flat out. That was the slowest car chase ever. Oh my God. And nobody got hurt, and nobody was in danger. It's like
they hit the vegetable cart and everything.
Oh yeah, and of course the dudes are the carrying the glass out that you got to smell. It was like every trope known to man. Oh,
by the way,
I agree with
you, Drew. Hang on. By the way, guys, I want to let you know before we move on from this part, I really want to have a Photoshop picture, because it's how could you do it, of us on 3 of those Vespas, 3 of those Star Wars Vespas, and I call the red one. I call the blue one.
I call red.
Drew's going to be on the green one.
Just to get a couple points across. One, he can't choreograph any kind of fights. They were terrible. Clumping up, everybody clumping up and all, and you got these like really devastating, bots that they must have come in on piece by piece on the actual passenger flights that the Pikes came on. Which makes no sense. You would think that like a mob would have their own ships, but no, they came on the cruise ships to Tatooine, which that is just mind-boggling to me. But so they put together these 2 giant robots, these droids. They send them out, all badass. It's going to be amazing. And then they all clump up behind a vehicle. Which why that vehicle wasn't blown to hell, I don't know.
It was eventually.
It wasn't. It wasn't. It was like a rock. And then the rock building, speaking of things not blowing up, somehow, they can be torn apart when the creatures like crawling all over them and they're breaking apart. They can be broken from that, but they don't get broken up from like blasters. And I mean, it's like the grouping, something about the grouping of people. They're all running away in a group, and the droid's shooting, and no one is like getting hurt. No consequences in this freaking show at all. I mean, it's just no one dies. Even Cad Bane, there's a question, like, because he has like this little heart monitor thing, and they're thinking, oh, that stupid robot I talked about before, his sidekick that they didn't show to do
Yeah, and
or
again, I don't
whatever
think
his
the
name is.
stakes were that high, right? So Boba Fett shows up. He's like, you know what? I'm going to take over Jabba's territory. I'm going to be the new, Daimo warlord in this area. And he chases the Hutts off just because he scowls at him or something. And they're like, oh no, don't hurt us. Here's a Rancor.
And no cover whatsoever. The
Right,
episode
but
that
but
he
again,
directed,
in the big climactic battle, he's got like 5 guys with him, right? He's got the Wookiee, he's got his right hand chick, he's got Boba Fett, he's got the Mandalorian, and what is the mechanic chick is
Yeah.
running around in her rickshaw, right? So there's 5 or 6 of them. One
Yeah,
boatload
Moto.
of dudes shows up from Freetown. Okay, and who am I missing? Am I missing anybody that was fighting on their
Chrysanthemum,
side?
the Wookiee.
Yeah, oh yeah, the Wookiee. But again, that's like, a dozen guys or
Yeah.
15, 20 guys or whatever. And against 15 or 20 guys and a couple of big things and yeah, they got a Rancor and all that. But again, the stakes on that whole thing was like a gang fight over a corner, not battling for the for who's going to own the entire planet, who's going to run the planet, right? I think if we're going to make those stakes bigger and better, I would rather have seen the people of Mos Espa go, we like Boba Fett. He's been doing, like, over the course of the series, if he'd done a little bit more than just walk downtown with his entourage, in tow and whatnot, to have the actual people of Mos Espa, not like one boatload of guys who were upset that their sheriff got killed. You see what I'm saying? Like, that would have been a much more satisfying turn of events for me, that it was more than just, oh, here's a dozen guys fighting a dozen guys.
I'd have rather just not seen him do any sort of crime lord thing. Just be a bounty hunter. Just go do something.
It never sat.
It was
Go
so
ahead, Drew.
compressed. The storytelling was so compressed. Number one, this should not have been just one shot, kind of 7 episodes. They needed 2 seasons, 14 episodes, and they could have told a really good story that would have made Boba Fett more, like the people would have liked him more for various different reasons. Like,
Right.
maybe the spice is really bringing the city down, the town down, and he comes in and stops it from coming in, and then it would have been better, and they would have respected him more. They could have done that and prolonged that. It would have been more interesting if that's the angle that they wanted to pursue. But it just seems like all they did was push everything through as quickly as possible, no matter how abrupt and weird it seemed. And then just things they wanted to have. This was all this guy's, Rodriguez's big fantasy of having, Boba Fett ride a Rancor. That was, to me, that was his whole thing. I want Boba Fett to ride a Rancor. And
He
I'm
wanted
gonna
to do a
throw everything
callback to the
there.
Christmas special.
And it was just, and the fact that, like I said, it was a muddy mess. The storytelling was terrible. The Pikes, not hiding behind, like cover. They're just standing in the middle of the street. That whole weird exchange between the biker girl and like the one rebel girl, and they go up with the sniper rifle and they don't even do anything. I'm like, what was that all about? It was a giant waste of time. Are we supposed to feel excited? Like they're
No, they were showing that the people on the outskirts and the people from the big city could unite against the Pikes. They put aside their differences, because remember, they had that one snarky thing when they first met, like, who are these bumpkins, or whatever they said.
It felt
They
like
were
Star
right.
Wars and Cyberpunk got jammed together. I mean, clearly he doesn't know anything about Star Wars. He just doesn't get it, and that's okay. Some people don't get it. He doesn't understand. It's
Right,
not
but and
not
here's
like
my
you
thing,
don't have
though.
a gang.
Here's my thing, though. Like, you can't lay it all at Robert Rodriguez's feet. We can lay a lot of it, and I'm not trying to let him off the hook.
We get a lot of it.
But Filoni and Favreau, somebody said, you know what? Yeah, we love Vespas. That's a great idea. Somebody looked at that script and said, oh yeah, this is fire. Let's do this. The fans are gonna love it. Right? And that's what I'm saying, is like, I'm willing to assign blame as required. But having said that, he made gazillions of dollars directing a Star Wars thing, and all I get to do is sit around and talk about it. I'm so jealous. Like, I wish that was my job. But I don't want to Monday morning quarterback everybody, but at the end of the day, there's been enough mishandling of Star Wars And there's been enough right handling of Star Wars, right? Like you look at the battle from Rogue One in the street, right? When
Mm.
they blow that tank up and the AT-AT Walker comes walking
See,
in,
that was
and
a great one.
like
Great.
that is how you do
Yeah.
kind of street level combat in a Star Wars setting. Like
Right.
we could have transplanted that aesthetic into Boba Fett, and it would have been amazing.
It would have been
It
great.
would have been.
But you
Yeah.
got to admit, episodes 1, 3, and 7 he directed. The first one, innocuous. There wasn't anything that I could really complain about there. But 3 and 7 were the worst episodes in the slot. And
Which one was 3?
worst,
Refresh my memory.
3 was when the gang shows up and you get all these
Okay.
cyborg
Yep.
guys, and it was terrible. And 7 was terrible. Why would you give, like what you said, after having a history of really screwing Star Wars with terrible people that don't understand it, why in the world would you give it to this guy? I mean, it's just ruined something that could have been a lot of fun.
I agree with you, but I'm not looking at Robert Rodriguez's resume, his body of work, and going, "Oh, this guy's terrible." He did Sin City. I love Sin City. He did Once Upon a Time in Mexico. I love that movie. Right? Desperado was great. Those are a little older, I'll grant you that. And he did the whole Spy Kids thing where he was doing it for the kids, and the Shark Boy and Lava Girl. So like like in all seriousness, that is showing that he could do movies for the adults. And he's like, "Hey, I got kids, and I want them to be able to see some of my movies," and he's playing in that sandbox. Cool, good for him. But I don't look at any of those and go, "Oh my gosh, this guy's terrible. He's never done anything that I would want to watch." That's not the case.
I don't understand. I don't understand why they didn't have a more thematic consistency throughout the series. They had more of that with the Mandalorian, but if you look at this season with Boba Fett, it was almost like you could tell there were different storytellers telling different episodes. And
right,
the
and
thing
that's
that
something
made
I don't understand why.
I don't know. And you know what? I'm okay with that. If there's a certain thread that combines them all or brings them all along, I'm okay with that. But man, I think what made especially this finale so harsh was the fact that you had the 2 previous episodes, which really brought you out of that, that Tusken Raider, ride it like this kind of thing, It brought you out of that, and you were like, "Oh my gosh, this is kind of cool." You got the Mandalorian on some Halo kind of thing, and all that. That's really cool. Cut a dude in half. That's amazing. And then Luke doing his whole his best Yoda
Right,
impression.
Ahsoka.
Yeah, Ahsoka and all of that.
Ahsoka,
that was great. That was great. And then you had Cad Bane show up, and you were like, "All right."
Yeah.
Maybe something cool's going to happen here. That was cool.
With Timothy Oliphant, right? Like he's a good actor. Like I like him, and I was like, "Oh no, did they kill Timothy Oliphant? Oh no!"
And then in the very next episode, Cad Bane goes walking up to him, and for some reason challenges him, and Boba says, "No, I'm not going to fight you now." Okay, why didn't he just shoot him? It didn't make sense. The theme, the string.
You don't understand the code of the Wild Western Rim.
I get it. I get it.
The Star Wars
and you know
galaxy.
what? There's so many things that just didn't make sense in the storytelling overall. It just seemed very jagged. And I think what made it so harsh is that you had those 2 that raised your hopes, that you were like, "Oh, okay, maybe it's going to end on a really good note somehow. All right." And then you get in there and it's, "Oh, come on."
Right.
It's not
well, see, and here's the thing. Let's talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe for a second. You had a bunch of different directors. You've had a bunch of different actors and different producers and whatnot. But there is a core group of people that are like, they're gonna they didn't accidentally make 20 movies that tie in together. You know what I mean? Like, and they have this experience from the comics and doing these big crossover events and all that kind of thing. But some people got in a room and they were like, "All right, so in this movie, we're going to set up this kind of thread. And this movie, we're going to set up this kind of thread." And you tell your own story, but there were pieces that wove the entire series together so they could do this big climactic ending. And some people love them. Some people hate them. I don't care. They did a good job of weaving all of those storylines together and telling a story consistently across 20 movies. Right. And so if Disney can't do that with Star Wars in a single series, like with 7 episodes, if you can't get it together, it almost feels like like someone at Disney was like, oh, you did good, you get to write an episode, and you did good and you get to write an episode, and there's nobody going, well, wait, this doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Who's
Well,
who's in charge of your continuity and whatnot. And up until this point, I would have placed all my faith in was it Filoni and who am I drawing a blank on the other guy? Yeah, Favreau. Right.
Yeah.
And because again, they've earned my trust. Yep. Right. And I like them, and I don't want that to reflect, I don't want any of this to reflect poorly on them, but they're both listed as like executive producers.
Yeah.
Right. And we know Favreau's like in charge of all this. So, you need to get yourself somebody like Bendis when he was over at Marvel and was orchestrating these big crossover events, and be like, you know what, we need these to be good. Especially with Star Wars, that has a history of screwing up so poorly. Right. Imagine that. How do you mess up Star Wars? And yet they've done it so consistently. Right. So then these guys come along with The Mandalorian, and they give us like Rogue One and The Mandalorian are like the redemption story of Star Wars. And then Boba Fett is like, oh, let's this is going to be great. And that's what we got. We didn't get great. We got, oh, that was okay. Right?
Why did they bring Grogu back? That just, I know from a marketing
definitely
standpoint,
the merchandising.
I know. But from storytelling, that just upset me so much. Yeah, that really did.
Like I said, it was a dog's dinner of an episode. Like, let's have everything that we've had in one giant. Surprised Luke didn't show up and start killing people.
Oh, actually, I actually would have preferred that.
That's right. Coming to get Grogu, who ran away from the orphanage or something, Come on, you little tyke.
It's just, and the other thing is, too, it's like there's just certain things. Talk about things that are dumb. Like you were talking about with aliens and how the people acted. They've got the Amy Sedaris character, Pelly, throwing a freaking wrench at the droid that's pulling them to Escape's head. Oh, go faster, gink. And it's like, I hate that kind of crap. And
I know.
You get some people like, oh, that was the humor. It was so funny. No, it wasn't funny. They're trying to get away, for God's sakes, and she's throwing a freaking wrench at the only thing that's keeping them alive. Would she do that?
It's weird, the tempo. It goes from what would be more grown-up humor to suddenly trying to throw in something that's ridiculous kid-type humor.
It's almost like somebody made too many Spy Kids movies.
Yeah, it's almost like that. And then the people in his shows and his movies showing up, the Alita was, the girl who was the lead biker chick.
Oh, was that her? Okay.
Yeah. And then you've got, the Rancor trainer.
Yeah, Danny Trejo.
And it's like, you could see that this guy's fingerprints are all over this. They're all gross and smudgy.
Well, let's be honest, though. If anybody's going to train Rancors, Danny Trejo fits the bill.
And I don't mind Danny Trejo being in there.
Been cool.
Right? No, that was a really good cameo. As for like he fit that role, and it was just a very small one. And it was like, oh, it's that guy I've seen in all the movies, even if I don't remember his name.
But my point is, I think he had a lot more say. Rodriguez had a lot more say about how these.
Yeah, I think so too.
Right. Unfortunately, I agree with you, and I have to lay it on him. Like it is like it is his fault. But you know what? There's executive producers and Filoni and Favreau. He didn't say, here's, go make 7 episodes way over there, and we're not going to have any input or know anything about them until you come back and they're in the can ready to put out. That's not how it works. These are,
in my mind, I like to think that they were working on the episodes we like, and then he was doing the finale, and then they looked at it and they were like, oh.
Yeah, they all come back, for show and tell. Like I made my 3, and oh wow, yours are great. And then they're like, all right, let's show yours. And everyone's like, when did we tell them these were coming out?
Yeah, we put all this money in.
Is there any time to fix this?
Oh my God. Yeah, it was bad. I have to say, and what's really funny? I watched it, and I'm like, I didn't think that was very good. And then the more I thought about it, the more I got angry at how bad it was.
See,
I know.
See,
when I first saw those, when I first saw the Vespas, I was like, I was like, okay, because I get the whole, motorcycle car, subcultures of people want to, have them up shiny. And I was like, okay. And I raised an eyebrow, but then after the episode and the next day, I was like, wait a second. that wasn't Star Wars.
No.
You know what I mean? Like I wasn't viscerally opposed to it because I want to see new
I was
things.
to
That's
that
the thing I hate about
I
Star
was,
Wars
yeah.
is they always do the same thing. It's like everything's on Tatooine. I'm getting really sick of everything happening on Tatooine. It's like this terrible backwater planet that no one's ever heard of, but every important thing that's ever happened,
Ever.
it's like the Poland of the Star Wars universe. It's like there's nothing going on there, but everybody's fighting over it.
The
I
Poland
just
of the
felt,
Star
I
Wars
felt differently on
universe.
the seventh episode. The seventh episode is the one that I gradually got more and more upset over, because it's like after I watched it, I'm like, I didn't like it. I'm like, I didn't like it. It could have been so much better. And then the more I thought about the potential, the more it upset me, and the more I thought about Robert Rodriguez's train wreck of episode 3, and I'm like, why did they give this guy the reins? It's just terrible. He obviously doesn't get it. And if you don't get it, like, I'm not saying he's a bad person or that he's necessarily a bad director. I don't prefer his sort of stuff, but he doesn't get Star Wars, and that's the key thing. If these guys don't get it, you cannot have them in there and try to push them to get it.
Well, that's the thing. I don't know why they don't put Filoni in charge, because he's done enough. He knows the theme. He knows enough about the universe and stuff, and he's got a good track record with that. I don't know why they wouldn't put him in the position of doing that.
Here's the thing. This is what I said before the other week. Like, I don't think you ever put all of this in one person's hands, because then if their creative ego or their juices or whatever, they just make a bad decision.
When has that ever happened?
Yeah, God, I can't think of anything where some director has gotten so popular and has had such success in their previous career that they basically give them a blank check to make whatever movie they want, and we end up with Avatar or the second 2 Matrix movies, second 3 Matrix movies, or
Matrix now.
or prequels or whatever. So on the one hand, like I say, I think you need that brain trust of people, and clearly Favreau and Filoni have demonstrated their love of Star Wars and their respect for the material and their ability to deliver the stories that the fans like. And I think they're trying to expand that brain trust by bringing in other people. Like, was it Bryce Dallas Howard did one of them, and because again, before this series came on, I would have been very excited about Robert Rodriguez as a director. I liked Alita Battle Angel. I like most of his previous. So like I say, I am unapologetically a fan of Robert Rodriguez. And then I watched this series and I was like, come on, man.
He's chipping away. He is personally chipping away at that tree in your heart, isn't he?
He is, and that's why it hurts more, because I love him. But again, you can't be just Dave Filoni and just Jon Favreau. Like, they need to bring on some other people who love the intellectual property as much as they do, because they can't make all the movies and all the shows, right? You can't have 2 guys making everything that Star Wars and Disney wants to do.
Why haven't they brought back the guy who did Rogue One? I don't know why they haven't done that.
Yeah, who is the guy that did Rogue One?
I don't know.
I'm on IMDb. Let me look it up.
Maybe he knew that was it. He just wanted to get the hell out because he
was like, I can't top this.
That's enough. Oh, yeah. While you're looking that up, hey,
I even spelled it right. I did not spell it Rouge One this time.
Oh, that's terrible.
Director is Gareth Edwards.
Gareth Edwards, that's it. There you go. I knew it. I said it before you said it.
Okay. What else has he done? Oh, he did Monsters? Oh, wow. I didn't know that was him. So have you guys seen that movie Monsters?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he made that for like 50 cents or something. It was basically the cameraman and the actor and like the editor, and they drove across like South America, literally just filming as they went, and they were doing the editing. So like, I've seen Monsters, so I didn't know it was that guy. That was a great movie.
Which actually goes towards your point, Mark, that sometimes some of the stuff is just not in the director's, it's not their fault. Because isn't he also the one who did Godzilla?
He did 2014 Godzilla.
Right. Which was not good.
He also did Star Wars episode. No, he was in Star Wars episode 3 as a Resistance trench shoulder. Oh, thank God.
Yeah.
I thought he did it for a second. I was like,
no,
oh no.
No, that was Lucas.
Yeah. Okay, he's got 8 director credits. Yeah, Monsters, Godzilla, Rogue One. Then he's filming one
See,
currently.
because Godzilla was terrible. Godzilla was not a good movie, but Monsters was good, and Rogue
Yeah,
One was good. And
yeah,
I think to your point, he had more freedom in or freedom from much of the industry, I suppose you could say. That would change it. He got
yeah,
lucky with that whole Darth Vader scene at the end. That Kathleen Kennedy said, "Yeah, sure, go ahead," and they did it in like 2 weeks, and threw that
yeah.
in there. But yeah, I that goes to your point, I think, where you can't blame the director for everything in there, because obviously he's done some good things, you
Yeah,
know.
and filmmaking is inherently collaborative. And I've done 3 or 4 of the 48-hour film festivals where you get together with a group of people and you're going to make a movie in 48 hours. And at the beginning of it, they can hand you like, here's your character's name and here's a piece of dialogue that has to be in the movie. And by the way, you're doing an action and you're doing a comedy and you're doing a whatever. And so you don't know ahead of time because you can't write the script ahead of time. But it is so collaborative, and I've written a couple of scripts for these, and I've literally seen the script or pieces of a script that I wrote, because I didn't write the whole thing myself, not turn out anywhere near what I imagined as a writer, where I was like, oh, this was kind of cool for this quick little thing, and maybe watch it not develop into what I'd hoped it would develop into in the hands of certain actors and other people and whatnot. And so the collaborative process it's never just like, I think I would prefer to be a writer director is what I'm trying to say, because I've seen things that I've written handed off to some other people and I go, oh, that's not how that line was ever intended to be delivered. But to be fair, you have 48 hours. It's not like you're dealing with professional actors who've had months to learn their lines and all of those kind of things. But
Well, it just speaks to the skill it takes in order to do something like that. I mean, you look at someone like Scorsese. I was watching Taxi Driver again the other day, and just the amount of collaborative effort that went into that to make that. And you get lucky sometimes with the kind of people you have in there, and then other times you don't. You end up with some horrible stuff. So,
right, and I
yeah.
call that like magic pixie dust. You know what I mean? And there's some movies that just everything came together, and you had you had this perfect storm of The Princess Bride and The Goonies, and some other ones where you can't imagine any other person being in
Well,
those roles.
what would you say is your top list for those where that has come together?
Like perfect storm kind of movies.
Yeah.
Well, clearly, I mean Goonies and what was the other one I just said? Drawing a blank. I think The Matrix was great, the first one. Right? I can't imagine
Mm.
other people in any of those roles.
Do the
Um,
do the do the follow-on movies change your perspective at all for the first one?
I pretend the follow-on movies don't exist.
That's
Yes.
how I am. I don't.
Yeah, I like The Matrix is if it's not my favorite movie of all time, it is top 3. Like I think The Matrix is one of my favorite movies ever.
Hmm.
Period. Like that is good storytelling. You know
Hmm.
what I mean? It's visually, it's got all the things I like. It's got gunplay and kung fu and a woman in a red dress, a plot that is like the first time I ever watched that movie, halfway through, I'm thinking to myself, this is going to be so much better the second time, because I knew that there was a lot of things that I was missing, as opposed to some movies that are like 5 minutes in, you're like, that's the bad guy. Here's how it's going to end. Those bore me. You know what
I
I
like
mean? Like,
Blade Runner
like,
as well. I think Blade Runner fits into that.
Blade Runner was one of those
But
for me too.
fantastic movie as far as like the story and everything about it was just appealing.
right.
And what
Elf,
they
I think would
did,
be a great one.
and yeah, Elf is great. And I
Yeah.
think non-science fiction stuff like I think Harry Met Sally. When Harry Met Sally, I think that's a fantastic movie, and it really tells a great point about like relationship building and how people are and how people develop over time. It's like another Rob Reiner, like you
Yeah.
mentioned Princess Bride. Rob Reiner is a fantastic director. I mean, that guy clearly gets it, and I think actually I think like what you just said with Favreau, I think that guy gets it. All his movies we can be thankful for, from Iron Man to the Elf. I mean, the guy clearly does a great job of storytelling. I can't say enough about him. I think he's, I don't want to say he's an up and comer because he clearly has been doing this a long time.
Yeah. He's
But
establishment at this point.
he is a great established, like he is a go-to column of support that you can guarantee you're going to get something good from. Um, but I mean, there aren't a lot of them out there
Yeah, I think Forrest Gump is another one where it all came together. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
In
I
spite
can
of
imagine
itself.
someone else in that role of Lieutenant Dan or any of those other characters. You're like, that was just well done.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a
Yeah.
good a
But
good.
there's a difference between that's a great movie and I love all the people in it, and if they ever remade it, like I don't think you should ever remake The Goonies, and I don't think you should ever remake The Princess
First
Bride.
Indiana Jones,
First Indiana Jones, absolutely.
absolutely the best.
Like some movies are just so good,
His
or
love
they
interest.
captured everything that you're like, leave it alone.
She was the
That's a
best
great.
female character that's ever been in Indiana Jones. All the other ones paled before her. She was
Hmm.
phenomenal. What a great, she could match him line for line. And it wasn't, that's what I
But
really
yeah,
love
it
about,
was effortless.
yeah, she was a strong female character without being like eye rolling, like, oh, God, I can do anything you can do.
Yeah,
It wasn't any of that. She was just her own person. And that actress was phenomenal. It's just terrible. I can't remember her name. I mean, she was in Scrooged and
She was also in Animal House.
yeah.
she was also in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yeah.
Oh, right, right. But let's
Yeah.
forget that.
Yeah, I like to pretend that one doesn't exist.
I just
Also,
think about South Park when I think about that. Uh, I did see it. It was awful. Oh no, I can picture it in my mind.
See, for me, I would say, well, I've already mentioned a couple. I mean, you got to have Godfather, you got to have, Taxi Driver and stuff like that on there, but I think everybody would understand those are
Goodfellas.
Goodfellas. Yeah, well, that's
Goodfellas.
That
Yep.
another
is
one.
my
That's
absolute favorite number one top movie. Amazing storytelling, pacing, the characterization. You actually want to know more about these weird, characters that you just like him walking through the bar, like, and you
Yeah.
see, and he's introducing the difference, like, I'm going to go get the paper. All these weird, you know, all these weird characters.
and you know what? Him and Scorsese and
De Niro,
no, The Godfather's director.
uh, Coppola.
Thank you. Yes, Francis Ford Coppola. Coppola and Scorsese really influenced so much, with those two movies. But yeah, definitively those. Scorsese does a great job just about everything he does, and of course you got Apocalypse Now and all of that. But I would also say an unexpected one, or a couple of unexpected ones. These are the ones for me that are surprising, where everything just came together, right? I would put The Thing on there.
Yep.
Right, but
Yep.
the 80s, 1980s thing.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
The
Well,
original.
for me, I consider that the original, right? Not the 50s or
The
whatever,
50s
not
was
the
good,
follow-on.
Yeah, I know. I saw that one, and it was kind of funny actually.
and the
I'm
characters
not
were
I'm
good.
not knocking it. I'm
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
saying the
Right.
perfect one was Kurt Russell.
Agreed. Agreed.
That
Kurt
was.
Russell is
And you know
is
what's
my
odd?
man crush.
He is. And you know what? There's something about him that so many of the movies that I consider that perfect storm actually have him in it.
Yeah.
Tombstone.
Big Trouble in Little China.
Tombstone is another one. Big Trouble.
Tombstone.
You took away my thunder.
Yep. Sorry, man.
Big
Sorry.
Trouble in Little China is
That's a
probably
great.
my number one overall favorite of all time. Because I remember when we went and saw that, it was, to me in my young mind, it was mind blowing, and gave me such an appreciation for not understanding and not caring, what's going on, just going along for the ride, and having a good time doing it. And his character allowed for that, so many good quotes out of that, just so
Yeah.
many good
Oh
quotes
Yeah.
yeah.
out of that. Captain Ron was another one. I know a lot of
Right.
people,
Right.
That is a
but
shameless.
I don't know if that was like the perfect movie ever. It was a great movie.
no,
but I don't
I'm
know
talking
if I'd put it in
about
there with,
Kurt Russell.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
I was about to say I wouldn't put that in there with Goonies, but
No. I'm
And
talking about as a
Kurt
Kurt
Russell
Russell
right.
movie
as
Yeah.
an
Yeah. Yeah.
example of,
I agree with you,
just
Sean.
something about him.
Is something about he makes that movie
He
so fun
does.
with
He
Martin
does.
Short.
Yeah.
And I mean, what is the one of the most one of the funniest lines? And I'm gonna like Martin. He's down like
Yeah, where he
Kurt
hurt
Russell is
himself.
in the boat with that girl,
Yeah.
and Martin Short comes down and says, "What does he say?" And she goes, "No, she's Filipino, Doc, or whatever." He calls her like I can't remember what he
I
calls
remember
her.
that. Yeah,
And
yeah.
Kurt Russell doesn't know what the word means. He's like, "No, she's Filipino." It's just like, oh my God,
I
that's so
loved his line in there about, well, I've always been a quick healer, and of course, I believe in Jesus. He is so great in that.
Oh.
And just something about him and how he does that is just great. He's got that charisma, just
Yeah.
makes it good.
And like I say, I'll say Escape from New York is a terrible movie.
It's
Like, it's not good at all. But darned if he isn't really memorable as Snake Plissken
Yeah.
in that. Like, he's the best thing about that movie. That is not a great movie.
It is
No.
not.
But man, is Snake Plissken memorable. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's all him.
That's
Let's
why,
just
as a
say-
matter of
let's just say
fact,
that for the record, that Kurt Russell is our avatar for this podcast. He is the most. He is the pinnacle of.
Let's do it. Until the lawyers get involved, he's our man.
that's
He's the
right.
man.
It's homage.
If there,
That's
It's
if
homage.
there's a godlike being actor and for nerddom is Kurt Russell.
Yeah.
He's the man and should be worshipped accordingly.
He is great. Yes, he is. He is amazing. Yes. Yeah.
Kurt Russell.
What else would you put? Oh, Airplane.
Oh yeah, Airplane.
You know,
I watched The
Ghostbusters,
Professional the
first
other day.
Ghostbusters.
I watched the extended version of The
Ghostbusters, too?
Professional with like Gary Oldman. I love everything he's in, but he was great in that movie.
in The Professional. Oh
The
yeah,
Professional
yeah,
with young Natalie Portman and
Yeah.
who was it,
I
Jean
always
Reno?
I forget Gary Oldman was in that.
yeah.
Like,
Right.
yeah, it's like really weird. But yeah, he was.
Yeah, that's another one of those perfect storm things that you weren't really expecting it to be much.
Right. And I'd
you know.
forgotten how amazing the cinematography was.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you just remember like it's a cool movie, and then I watched it the other night with my wife who'd never seen it, and we're watching it, and just that scene at the end where he's like, I'm gonna sneak out, and Gary Oldman comes up behind him, and like the camera is going, and then the flash gets bigger, and you realize he's just been shot in the back, and the camera just kind of falls down, and it starts to go. I mean, that was just so beautifully shot that it had no business being in that kind of movie. You know what I
My
mean?
daughter was so sad when he, at the end of that movie. I mean, she's
Yeah.
so sad.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
did not believe, she really did not want that to happen. She was really heartbroken. I felt bad because she really enjoyed the movie, and oh yeah, we just saw Stand By Me last night for the first time for her. I mean, it's like,
Okay.
we watched that. She thought that movie was great. That's a good movie. And
See, you got to
it's
record
definitely a
that
good
stuff so I can see her break down and cry.
Well, she didn't, didn't cry obviously, but she was very disappointed. Like, I cannot believe I watched this and like got so attached to this character, and then
I'm still waiting for the sequel where Natalie Portman comes back all grown up, ready to
No, she
exact
didn't grow up
revenge.
much more. She stayed about the same height.
Stayed about the same height.
She did. She went on to become a ballerina and
A
ended up
ballerina,
dying
yeah,
on stage.
and a space queen,
That's right. Yeah. Well,
Right.
that was a long time ago.
She'll always
Yeah.
be Prince.
far, far away.
Far, far away. Yeah. But yeah, I would have what else? What else would I have in that list? I would have
E.T.
I don't know if I could.
I liked E.T. I thought it was great.
E.T. was, yeah, but I don't know if I would call that a perfect storm one, because if you've got a track record where you're able to manipulate things to get what you want, then I don't know if it was kind of,
Kids were great, man. The kids were great. I mean,
they were. I'm not saying
kids
that.
are
I'm not
awful.
saying that. What I'm saying is that by that time, Spielberg he was kind of getting the blank check thing. Whatever you want,
Yep.
you can have it.
Yeah, who's
But-
going to say no to him?
Right. The ones I'm talking about are the ones you weren't expecting. And The Godfather
Yeah.
was one of those where
Naked Gun.
they didn't want him to make it. They didn't want him to have Pacino. They didn't want any of that stuff. The Thing is another one of those. All of those where it just kind of came together. Oh, Die Hard.
Die Hard, yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Like that is one of those. Like that's almost a perfect movie. The script is super tight. The characterization of each of those people just makes so much sense, even if they don't have a lot of screen time.
And you know who
You know what I
makes
mean?
it? You know who makes that movie is not Willis. Bruce Willis is good, but he isn't what made the movie.
Right.
Rickman.
Rickman is
Yeah.
definitely
Right, Alan Rickman is great, but it's also like the storytelling and the cinematography and all of that just does so well. And it had the guy that looked just like Huey Lewis. That was always memorable. By the way, for the record, that is not Huey Lewis.
Yeah,
it's
it
just
is.
somebody that looks very much like him. Naked Gun I thought Naked Gun had a really good.
Yeah.
I mean, despite the fact that
Well,
O.J. Simpson later murdered his wife and allegedly murdered his wife
see, I didn't know if
and
I should put that in the list because that
male
was the
friend.
Zucker brothers. I didn't know if I should put that in the list because you have Airplane, which honestly was kind of a follow-on from Kentucky Fried Movie, but
Right.
but that was the Zucker brothers. Because if that's the case, and I don't know if I can, because then I would have put Top Secret in there.
Yeah, Top Secret's great. But again, I don't think those are perfect storm. Like, could never be remade. I'm with you. Yeah, because we're veering into territory of here's some of my favorite movies, which is not the same thing as these have captured the magic fairy dust, right? So for sure, Goodfellas, and for sure
Alien. I would put Alien in there because that was Sigourney Weaver's first movie. That was
it?
Yeah.
Oh,
that was.
What about Halloween? I put that in there.
Yeah, you could say that, yeah, because that started actually a whole new genre on its own.
Yeah, and for everybody who watched the movies that made us, that was one of the first movies filmed with a Steadicam.
With old
What's
Arnold,
that, Drew?
Conan the Barbarian. Conan.
No, that was stupid. Nobody liked that one.
How big was that at the theater, though? Was that big?
I think it did. I think it did pretty well. I mean,
I know it was a thing, but I didn't know if it was. I mean, that became.
Do you see anybody else playing old Arnold? Put a bad wig on him and let him roll.
No. You know what I would put in there though? Predator.
Predator. What about Better Off Dead? Everybody needs that $2.
The funny thing is, though, you say Predator,
Better Off Dead,
but those characters were all stereotypical, like.
But that no. But in Predator, that was the point. In Predator, that was exactly the point. Was that you had all those stereotype characters go there, so that this other alien could come in and hunt them. That was the point of it. And so all the ridiculousness that was in there, that was the point of it. Was that the alien came in and killed them anyway. That was the beauty of it. And
well, they even took that up to 11 in was it Predators? I think was the one directed by our favorite Robert Rodriguez, right? Where they're kidnapped and taken to an alien world. But again, each of the people stranded on the world was a killer of some kind. And the kind of the big reveal at the end, spoiler warning, is the serial killer doctor that everybody thought was, oh, what am I doing here? I'm with all these military guys and assassins, and he's like, oh, I'm just a medical student.
I like that when the Marine Corps came out and started killing the Predators.
With Danny Trejo, who was in that movie. But Predator was one of them. I would put that in there too.
Let's go. Please, let's not talk anymore about him.
That's right. Well, I think we have to go with Star Wars: A New Hope if we're talking about magic pixie dust.
No, that's true. That's true.
But I think the second movie was better.
Oh, the second movie was.
But you wouldn't have the second movie without the first.
We're talking about that perfect storm, right?
Yeah.
And him doing that one
because they were unknown actors. All of them were unknown. You know what I mean? Like, what is it? Grand Moff Tarkin was the only, and Kenobi, Alec Guinness were the only two like known big names.
Peter Cushing.
That as a 7-8-year-old kid, I didn't know who those guys were. Yeah, they didn't mean anything to me, but I come to find out later that they were like big deals.
Yeah, I knew who Alec Guinness was, but
Star Wars is
my
definitely
dad was a fan.
Yeah, but like Harrison Ford wasn't really in anything big before that. Mark Hamill was in a couple little things, but nothing that was big.
Yeah, but American Graffiti wasn't enough. That wasn't enough to give him the blank check. You know what I mean? And he had to give up so much in order to get Star Wars made at all, because so many people turned it down. And he, that's why he kept the merchandising stuff, and that's actually what funded everything.
Nobody thought it was going to be worth anything. Oh, Usual Suspects. I think that one has to go on the list.
Yeah, Usual Suspects. I would put that in there. That was a really.
I'm scrolling through a list of my movies that I have in my collection right now, and I'm seeing Way of the Gun.
We're already kind of established, though. A lot of those actors were already established. Actors.
They were established.
Are we talking about Usual
Suspects?
But again, that's not the point. Is that they have to be unknown actors? My point is all of those actors like gel in such a way that they captured that magic fairy dust. That's kind of where I'm coming from. Not like Star Wars. It happened with unknown actors. Usual Suspects would be the other end of that spectrum, where you take all these known actors in their own right and put them into this movie, and magic happens.
Yeah. Yeah,
Exactly.
the unexpected one is
Hmm.
what I'm kind of thinking of that way. And yeah, I would put Usual Suspects in there. I would do that. Yeah. Well, what about you, Drew? Face Off? Broken Arrow?
Those are ridiculous. Uh, well, I mean, I said a lot of mine. I mean, there are obviously other ones that are really like I like some older movies that I think are fantastic. Like with Ernest Borgnine, Marty,
Mhm.
I think is a phenomenal movie.
Yeah.
I can't imagine anyone else in that role that sells that movie the way Ernest
Yeah.
Borgnine did. I mean, he was fantastic. Um, and as far as that goes, I mean, A Wonderful Life. I think even though it didn't do well in the box office, I think that's a
Oh, I
really
believe so,
feel
yeah.
good, fantastic movie. And Jimmy Stewart was great. I mean, he just got back
Oh my
from
goodness.
war. You know, he just came
His
back from
acting
World
in
War
there?
II. His first movie from World War II. You can really see there's a lot of pain in that guy. I
Yeah.
mean, that's not just acting. I mean, that guy is
Yeah.
feeling it. I
Yeah,
mean,
his performance in that movie, I don't care what generation you're from, his performance in that movie is moving. And if it weren't
it is.
for him, if he weren't in that movie, to your point, if he weren't in that movie, I don't think anybody else could have
Oh
done
yeah,
that.
he
Right,
could have been
right.
totally like, like he wouldn't have cared, but he is
Hmm.
so good. And the
It's
thing that's amazing with it, he's good at starting out as being young. He really does seem like a different person when he starts
yeah.
out in the movie, and by the time he ends up, I mean, you can see this transformation, which is what I really love about his character and his acting, portraying that character. You see this
Oh,
trans.
oh, oh, Iron Man.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Okay.
that's
All right.
absolutely.
How about Napoleon Dynamite?
Yes. Unfortunately,
You
that's the
know,
only
I
movie
would
he's really good
No, I
in.
would put that in there absolutely because
I
I could
would,
see
yeah.
that movie being made with other actors or even with the same actors, just not handled as deftly as it was and not turning out, being the forgettable
Oh,
movie I think
okay.
a lot of people expected it to be.
Evil Dead.
And
And
this is the
instead, look
thing.
what we got.
I
Evil
don't
Dead.
think it
Evil Dead,
I don't
yeah.
think it was
Army
I don't
Beckham.
think it was handled deftly. I think it just, like you were saying, the perfect storm. I think it just happened. I
Yeah,
think that was
agreed.
it.
I mean,
But
What were
it
you
could
going
have
to say,
been
Drew?
mishandled and it wouldn't be what it was. You know what I mean? That's
That's
what I mean.
true.
If
That's
Bruce
true.
Campbell, as Ash
Yep.
is just
Hmm.
Ash. No one will ever be Bruce Campbell.
Yeah.
Will be
Right.
no one will ever
Right.
be Ash. Bruce Campbell was. I mean, oh my God, that guy is he's so funny and so expressive, but you know, I mean, the
That's
whole
the only
fierce.
reason.
You just killed your girlfriend with an axe.
See, that's the reason I would have Evil Dead in there, but I would not put Spider-Man in there. Is because by that point, that was the reason they chose him for that movie, was because he was successful with Evil Dead. So I would have Evil Dead in the perfect storm, but Spider-Man I couldn't put in the perfect storm, but I would put Iron Man.
Okay. I always liked Reservoir Dogs too.
Yeah, Reservoir Dogs, yeah.
Yeah, that's a
Because
good
that
one.
of course spawned his whole career.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, no doubt about it. That's a strong movie. And I mean, Pulp
Oh,
Fiction.
oh, oh. What about Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels?
Yeah, I mean,
Good. I'm not sure for me it has the rewatchability that Reservoir Dogs does. You know what I mean? Like it's a good movie, but as I'm flipping through the channels, it doesn't like grab my
You
attention as much as some of the other movies that are on that list. So it might not
that
be on that list
scene
for me.
that scene with the dude jumping vertically through the air as that chick is firing that machine gun.
Yeah. I recreate that on the regular basis. Yeah.
That is, yeah.
No.
Yeah, for that one scene
Yeah.
alone, if nothing else, I would have to
Yeah.
put it in there. And then you add
Hmm.
in what's his face, Bullet Tooth Tony out of
Yeah.
Snatch, sitting there smashing that dude's head in the car and all that. That was,
Hmm. May have to
I
give
don't know.
that
There
one
was,
another watch.
yeah, yeah. That was a good one. That was that scene with the machine gun, man. That was all of it. I just remember
Yeah.
you and me watching that, and you and me
Yeah.
just losing it with him jumping
That
through
was
the air
hilarious.
like that.
Like
well,
everybody kept forgetting that girl was there. Like she'd literally be in the
Yes.
scene, but just Like nobody was just like, who's that? Where'd she come from?
I think Fargo is one of those movies. That
Fargo,
really
yeah, the movie.
down.
But what was
Definitely.
their first one though? Fargo wasn't the first one.
Blood Simple was the first.
So
Was the
see,
first.
I'd put
They
Blood
actually
Simple in there.
they actually worked on Evil Dead. They actually wrote part of Evil Dead, and
Yeah.
but Blood Simple was the first. But
I would put
you
Blood
know,
Simple in there.
Miller's Crossing is an amazing movie.
Yeah,
Actually, I
Miller's
love
Crossing.
all those movies they've done. I mean, it's like they
All right, I may be the minority here, but I'm going to put Barry Gordy's The Last Dragon onto the list because Bruce
The
Leroy
Last
and the
Dragon?
Shogun of Harlem, nobody else could have played them. Nobody else could have played those characters.
now we know.
All
where
right.
You got it. You figured it out. You cracked the case.
The Last Dragon. Oh my god! Wow. I
Tell
don't
me,
know. If
tell me who
anyone's-
else is going to play the Shogun of Harlem.
I don't know if anyone else ever anywhere is going to know what you're talking about with that movie. And sadly, I do.
Then you know.
Sadly I do know. That was awful. Oh my God,
That was peak 80s is what that was. Peak 1985 is what that
my
was.
God. That was the height of the ninja.
That's what I'm saying. For those of you who were
craze.
not alive in the 80s, like everything had ninjas in it. Daredevil comics had ninjas in it. Like Ninja Turtles were coming around. Like ninjas were just hot. So everything
know
that had
what's sad?
ninjas and martial art. And it was just after Bruce Lee, which was more of the 70s or whatever. But like, we went from martial arts to
Bruce.
ninjas.
We went
Poor
from the Coen
Bruce.
Brothers to that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
oh my
Poor
God.
Bruce. And out of in history, they've discovered that ninja actually didn't dress like that at all, ever. So all of what was sold in Hollywood as the ninjas, all the way up even to this day, actually didn't exist.
What? Hollywood is
very
portraying
different.
things that aren't necessarily 100% accurate? What?
But you can't blame them. You can't blame Hollywood on this. This is how it was sold over the generations in Japan and in the world. But they've discovered that it wasn't actually like that. They didn't actually do that. It was more like the CIA. Is what it
Right.
was.
It's just some
So-
people dressed like other people.
Yeah, and that doesn't
happen to
sell
be
so
like-
well. That's
Actually, my
everybody's got
understanding
that.
is back then they didn't have movies, they had plays. And so you had people that were like moving sets around and stuff that would wear black in the plays. And in one of the plays, the person wearing black who was like, not part of the play steps out and murders somebody. Like, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, we didn't see that coming. And that's where this ninja outfit kind of evolved from, was from one
That
of
may
these
be.
plays where one of the characters, yeah.
It doesn't sound right. It does not sound.
Oh, it sounds right. I read it on the internet. It has to be true.
It sounds like
It says it right there on the internet.
I say we roll with it because it sounds good. I like
It
that.
sounds terrible.
No, like I'm serious because like my daughter was in plays and all the technical dudes who were like pushing lights around and stuff, they all wear black jeans and black t-shirts
And go out and murder
and
someone.
mentally you just kind of ignore them because they're not in the play. And that was the kind of the trope that they were like, oh no, this background character who wasn't even supposed to be there showed up and murdered someone just like ninjas would do back in the day, and then disappear backstage left.
Now, see, the ninjas actually did a couple of cool things like that. They did. There was a couple times they did that really cool going in, killing a bunch of people, and all that stuff thing. They just didn't do it the way that everybody was
Because they were
wanted
planted
them
in
to.
these societies.
Did they have the smoke bombs? Please tell me they had the smoke bombs, because that is so cool.
Sure.
I mean, they were seen in societies. That's what the ninjas were just so like, they were planted in these societies, and they had married and had families.
Yeah.
And they were like,
Yeah.
contributing members of society. And then, they get some kind of signal, and it's like, it's go time. It's go time. Time to kill everybody. It's just so insane. Only
Yeah.
only the Japanese could like be patient enough to be like placed in some society, be friends with everybody, and then go out and murder the leader or something. I mean, it's like, I don't think you'd find any like American that could do that. Okay, we're gonna put you in there, and within the first week, the guy would be like, "I'm gonna get him."
No, but according
My
to
way.
Black Widow, the Russians have done it. So
Yeah, and clearly Drew has never seen the hit show The Americans.
that's right. You know what we should talk about next time, Mark?
What?
Got to make a note of this. I just saw that they're doing a couple things. They're doing a price hike over at Games Workshop, and they're doing a model rotation, and so that probably, since you mentioned we all work there,
I did mention that.
that would probably be a good thing for us to talk about next time. Is talk a little bit about that, I guess, and why those things happen and stuff like that. Because there seemed to be a lot of confusion from people as to why they're doing what they're doing, and that kind of stuff. So,
greed.
Save it for the next episode. You're going to give it away.
The next
Dude,
episode will be 5 seconds long. Greed.
Yeah. Well, it's like you guys remember when what is it, HBO or whatever did that documentary about the McDonald's Monopoly game. You know how all the winners were actually, it was a big scam. And it was like 5 or 8 episodes long, and they're talking about, oh my God, and literally they're like, yeah, some guy had access to them and he stole them. Like, they could have put that in the first minute of the first episode, and then nobody would have watched the rest of them. But instead, we had to sit through all of these ones about they're checking out the secure printing warehouse, they're checking this guy and that guy and the other guy, and trying to figure out how did it do it. And it turns out some guy went in the John and swapped out some envelopes or stole some things. And there you have it. And I ate so many Big Macs trying to win Boardwalk and Park Place. So now I feel...
I always threw mine away.
I did too.
I was like, yeah.
No, I was like, see, I don't play the lottery, but I do play McDonald's Monopoly.
I don't play.
That's right. Well, you did something for that. You bought a hamburger.
I bought a hamburger, So in addition to the hamburger, I get that free little dash of hope.
That's right. Yeah.
Sprinkled over my French fries.
That is the saddest story I think I've heard you tell me.
No, the saddest story is we all used to work at Games Workshop.
Yes. Well, what a tragedy that was. A tragedy in 3 parts.
It just makes me say, Mark, there's no hope. Let me just, don't hang on to it. There's no hope. It's all gone. This is it.
I'm sure hope exists at the bottom of these French fries.
This is as good as it gets. This podcast that 6 people watch. This is as good as it gets.
That's right. Oh, what a journey life has dealt me.
We probably just lost 3 of them. 3 of the listeners.
That's right. Yeah. My wife, my brother. Yeah, they stopped. They're like, yeah, I'm done. That was boring.
They're not watching it anyway.
They're not watching that.
So, all right.
There you have it. I'm sure everyone is smarter now.
Yeah. So anyway, but yeah, I figure next time we can dive into some of that, because I know Mark wanted to talk about some of that stuff too.
Definitely. Yeah, we covered the gambit here. So maybe on future episodes we'll continue exactly like this and just go where the winds take us, or maybe we'll throw up a topic and go, let's stick with this topic, whatever. I don't know. This was fun. Like I said, we covered a lot of ground, I thought. We went far afield.
Most of today seems to have been in the entertainment industry.
Yeah,
Hollywood.
Yeah. Well, I think we should end the show by thanking Kurt Russell for all his hard work.
Yeah.
And making our childhood, teenage years more filled with joy and hope, Mark.
Yes.
That's true. I've been let down by so many people in my life, but you know who's never let me down?
Kurt Russell has never let
Sean
me down.
first, and then Kurt Russell.
Hey, I'm in good company then. That's awesome, because we can all agree, Kurt Russell, the best, the absolute best. Yeah. And he started at Disney.
Disney now.
So there you go.
Which is amazing. It's hard to believe.
It's come full circle.
That's right. Witch Mountain. And now look at him. If that isn't a metaphor for life. So.
All right, there you have it.
Until next time.
All right, until next time, signing off.
This concludes our Speak Nerd and Enter broadcast.